At the age of 15, I experienced the loss of my father. Known for his structured and organized nature, he meticulously crafted his will. Following his passing, my 45-year-old mother wasted no time in seeking a fresh start. Swiftly, she entered a new relationship and welcomed her partner into our home. The transition felt remarkably sudden. Merely 2 months later, I discovered that my father had bequeathed everything to me, leaving nothing for my mother. Their lack of marriage rendered her unable to contest the will's provisions. His estate plan was intricately detailed, leaving no room for dispute. Nevertheless, my mother attempted to sway me into sharing the inheritance. She proposed transferring one of my properties to her to signal acceptance of her partner into our household, perhaps hoping to strengthen their relationship. However, even if I had been inclined to do so, I was bound by my father's will, which stipulated that I couldn't access the inheritance until I turned 21. Thus, I had no authority to assist her, regardless of my sentiments. Her new partner had 2 children of his own, now aged 18 and 19 respectively. While they were amiable, my mother evidently prioritized them. She would bend over backward to keep her boyfriend happy, making sure that his kids felt comfortable and welcome. It's not like she was a terrible parent or completely ignored me, but there was a clear difference in how she treated them compared to how she treated me. They would all go on trips together, and my mom never outright told me I couldn't go, but she'd subtly suggest other plans. She'd say something like, "Hey, wouldn't you like to visit your grandparents on your dad's side?" She'd frame it like a suggestion, but I wasn't stupid. I knew she didn't really want me tagging along on their family trips. When I turned 17, things got worse. She asked me to leave my own house because I was constantly fighting with her boyfriend. I would remind him whose house it really was whenever he tried to act like he was in charge. I didn't care that he was trying to play man of the house. It wasn't his house, and I let him know it. I'd even call him John Conroy, a nickname meant to mock him. It got under his skin, which only made things more heated between us. My mom thought that kicking me out was the best solution. So there I was, 17 years old, and asked to leave my own home. I felt like I had to navigate this challenging family dynamic on my own, while my mom continued to favor her new partner's kids over me. Even though I understood her desire to keep her new relationship stable, it didn't make things any less frustrating or painful for me. After my mom asked me to leave the house, my grandparents stepped in and encouraged me to avoid a big confrontation with her or her boyfriend. They offered me a safe place to stay, so I moved in with them. My mom would visit me often, trying to reassure me that she loved me while explaining that she needed to keep the peace at home. Her words didn't really make the sting any less painful, but I tried to understand. After finishing college, I decided to take a closer look at the properties my dad had left me, especially the one where my mom was living. I wanted to renovate it and rent it out since it was a good house, and the extra income would help me afford my master's degree. I went to tell my mom about my plans, but no one was home. Later, I found out that she and her boyfriend had gone on vacation. I tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. With no way to reach her, I decided to change the locks so I could officially take possession. They finally came back yesterday but couldn't get in. Naturally, they called me right away, but I wasn't in town. Today, I went to the house because I wanted to start preparing for the renovation work that would begin in a few weeks. I was in the backyard when my mom stormed in, furious and yelling at me, demanding to know how I could dare lock them out of the house like that. We had a heated conversation, and I let her know that they had 2 weeks to find somewhere else to live. Her boyfriend, who claims he's self-employed but really just seems unemployed to me, was furious. My mom and her stepdaughter started crying because the girl was pregnant. I felt bad about that, but I'd already made up my mind and I needed to follow through. My mom's family is now shaming me for kicking them out, saying it's heartless and unfair. They think I'm being selfish and ruthless, especially since my mom is caught in the middle. But honestly, I felt like this was my only option. What do you think? Am I the bad guy in this situation? Edit. I own the house, and I'm the one who's been paying the property taxes every year. My mom called me today saying we could talk now. For the comments, not the idiot, because you were kicked out of your own house and made the secondary priority as a child. As an adult, you're now doing what you couldn't do then. Ensure you're doing everything legally so they can't make things harder on you. I'm wondering if your father knew something, and that's why you got everything. Also okay, Even if your mom's stepdaughter is pregnant, she and all of them, to be honest, this isn't your responsibility, OP. You were charitable enough to let them stay until you were 23 when you could have easily kicked them out 2 years earlier when you turned 21. So they need to take responsibility and be thankful that you were graceful for this long already and not attack you over it. Be wary of them destroying the house in revenge. OP, just thought I'd throw that out there. He tried by calling once and showing at their door while they weren't there. That isn't much far from an official letter with receipt proof or anything. It doesn't even seem like he left a voicemail when he called. And usually you change the locks after the tenant is gone, not while they still live there and haven't been evicted yet. So you were the idiot, OP. The mother and stepfather likely have squatters' rights and tenant rights that dictate whether or not you're allowed to change locks or renovate, how much warning you're obligated to give them, and what constitutes reasonable steps to have notified them. This isn't my house, my rules. It's what a landlord can legally do when their property is under tenancy, and that's well beyond what we can talk about here. Agree, major red flags that she treated you like rubbish over the years, but when she needs a place to stay, she is happy to reach out to you. She's an adult. She made her bed, so she shouldn't lie in it. You are not responsible for her or her husband, and I'm sure they're fully capable of working. Sorry for the pregnant lady, but at the end of the day, these are your assets and home. Go no contact if you can't and tell them where to go. You're not her bank or provider. That was her job, and she failed miserably when she basically excluded you in favor of a new family. So okay, she was happy with them. Well, she can stay with them, and they can all be happy together in their homelessness. Story 2. I have 4 kids. My oldest, John, is 27 and was born to my first wife. Sadly, she passed away when John was just 5 years old. It was a tough time for both of us. Eventually, I remarried, and with my second wife, I gained 2 stepdaughters, Lisa, who is now 25, and her younger sister, who is 18. My second wife and I then had a son together, Mike, who is currently a teenager. So in total, we've got a full house with these 4 kids. We've always worked hard to provide them with good lives. When John and Lisa both graduated from university, we wanted to give them a special gift to celebrate their hard work. So we decided to give them each their own condo unit. It was a way to show how proud we were of their achievements and set them up for independent living. And we've got a plan to do the same for Mike once he finishes school too. On top of that, each of the kids has a trust fund that they will receive when they turn 30. It's something we put in place to make sure they're all set up with some financial security for the future. John and Lisa both did really well in their studies. They went to prestigious universities and earned their degrees. John studied engineering and got a high-paying job right out of school. Lisa pursued her passion for business and got her master's degree while working in marketing. Eventually, she started her own marketing consulting firm and even became a co-owner of a spin-off company. She's done an incredible job carving her own path. Meanwhile, John has recently gotten engaged to his girlfriend of 2 years. They're planning to get married by the end of the year. She seems like a kind person, but she doesn't make as much money as John does. John is very generous with her, often treating her to nice dates and giving her expensive gifts. He's always been caring that way. But now she's moved into the condo we gave him, and from what I know, she isn't contributing her share toward things like utilities or the condo association fees. It's mostly John handling those expenses. Now, with their wedding coming up soon, John is asking to access a portion of his trust fund early to help pay for the big day. He says it's because his fiancée doesn't have much to contribute financially, so he wants to cover the cost himself. I understand it's his money, and I want him to have the wedding he dreams of, but I also worry about him possibly stretching himself too thin. Now, here's where I might have messed up. I told John that I would release part of his trust fund early, but only if he drew up a prenuptial agreement, prenup, with his fiancée. When he heard this, he got really angry and said it was unfair because I let Lisa access half of her trust fund last year to help her start her business. He accused me of playing favorites and giving Lisa special treatment. I tried to explain that I supported Lisa because she used her trust fund to start something worthwhile, a business that she's really passionate about. And while I agreed that the wedding was important, I also pointed out that it didn't seem like the safest idea to use his fund for a wedding to a girl who doesn't seem to contribute much financially. I explained that my request for a prenup was just a way to ensure that John had some security just in case things didn't work out. I wanted to make sure he would be protected, but this just made him even angrier. He said I was implying that his fiancée was a gold digger. My wife and the rest of the family decided to stay neutral and refuse to pick sides. So here I am, stuck in this tricky situation. I just want the best for my son, but now he feels like I'm not being supportive of his relationship and I'm not sure what to do next. Am I the idiot? Now, for the comments before the update. You are the idiot. So he's done everything you've expected, and you're really going to try to force him into a prenuptial? I understand your position, but if he loses the money, that's on him. So just make it clear you won't bail him out. You are the idiot. I grew up relatively poor. My husband comes from a very wealthy family. Everyone called me a gold digger. We're happily married, and now I make more money than him by a few thousand. Am I still a gold digger, or is my husband the digger now? Plenty of people are gold diggers, but making less money or coming from less money does not automatically make you a gold digger. Having a prenup isn't a bad idea, but the way you talk about everything in this, it's obvious that you only care about money. You're the only one who cares. We have no clue what anyone else thinks or how they are because you only talk about money. Not the idiot. Why would premarital assets be shared once you're married? You're a team. Of course, any financial success your son may have after marriage would almost certainly be achieved in large part thanks to his wife's support. But gifts given from loved ones, why would that be a joint asset? Update the next day. My son and I had a long conversation. I started by apologizing to him for my comment about his fiancée. I realized that my words were demeaning and uncalled for, and I wanted to make it right. We then talked about how he and his fiancée were managing their household. He admitted that he was covering everything, including bills, food, and even the cost of hiring someone to clean because neither of them would do it themselves. I asked if she ever offered to pitch in, and he said no. I made it clear that I didn't have a problem with their arrangement or him spoiling her, but he needed to be smarter about his spending habits. I wanted him to understand the importance of being financially wise. I explained the value of a prenup and shared that I had one with both his mom and stepmom. However, John still refused, saying that it could offend his fiancée again and raise red flags in their relationship. So, I decided to stick to my original plan and release his trust fund when he turned 30, as we initially agreed. He wasn't happy about this, but I felt it was the best decision to ensure his financial stability. I also asked what kind of wedding they were planning that made them feel like they needed to dip into his trust fund. He told me that she dreams of having a big beach wedding. They also want a full photo and video production to announce their engagement, which I found a bit over the top. They're set on having this wedding within the year, but can't afford it since she's only paying for her wedding dress. Jayan also admitted that he doesn't have much in savings, probably because of all the expensive dates and trips they've been taking. I tried to gently remind him of the importance of planning for the future and being mindful of his spending, especially with such a significant event coming up. I hope that he can find a balance between making his fiancée happy and being wise with his finances. So I told John that their wedding plans weren't practical, but if they really wanted the big beach wedding and all the extras, they should wait and save up for it. After our conversation, I felt more confident about my decision not to release his trust fund early. The way I see it, my son could go broke in a few years if he keeps paying for everything and spoiling his fiancée-turned-wife. The trust fund is the last significant thing all my kids will receive from me, and I want to ensure it supports their future. That said, I'm not so stubborn that I won't support his wedding at all. My wife and I agreed to give them a certain amount as a wedding gift that should cover a beautiful venue and leave a little extra for other expenses. It's our way of contributing while still encouraging John to be financially responsible. If he's still unhappy with this arrangement, then there's not much more I can do. Even if they decide to go no contact or low contact with us, I'll feel at peace knowing I did my best to provide for John and tried to protect him. If his fiancée leaves him and he ends up losing everything, I'd hate to see it happen, but that's a consequence he'll have to handle. Despite my concerns, I genuinely hope their marriage works out and that he finds the happiness he's looking for. For the comments, thanks for the update. The real question should be, how can he and his fiancée not have money for a wedding when they have a paid-for condo? He has a high-paying job, and she works too. How much is this wedding they're planning? Like Justin Timberlake and Jessica Biel style? I mean, I had a decent paying job and a house payment and saved a nice chunk of change for a decent-sized wedding with some planning and budgeting. I think they need financial literacy more than a prenup. Am I the only one concerned that if what OP says is true about his son's fiancée not paying for utilities, etc., is in fact concerning? I always pay my fair share because I'm an independent adult, and marriage doesn't change that. Also, why such an extravagant wedding if she cannot afford it? If your son screws this up and you bail him out, you will not be doing him any favors. Whatever the outcome, he needs to be on his own. Hopefully, that means he'll be happily married, but I'm not sure that will be the case. Story 3. Last weekend, my best friend had a beautiful wedding at a dreamy destination spot. I had the honor of being her maid of honor, and our close friends made up the bridesmaid group. Initially, I planned to leave my kids with my in-laws so they wouldn't be exhausted by all the travel and wedding activities. It felt like a sensible plan, given how tiring weddings can be, especially in another location. The kids could have a fun weekend at their grandparents' house while we were celebrating. A few weeks before the wedding, my friend insisted that my kids come to be ring bearers. She really wanted them to be part of the ceremony, and it was clear how much it meant to her. She talked about how adorable they'd look in their little suits, and she pictured them walking down the aisle charming everyone. I explained that I couldn't bring the kids only for the ceremony because I'd need to arrange for a babysitter during the reception. I couldn't afford to pay for one after already spending so much on this destination wedding, a trip for the bachelorette party, hair and makeup, and my maid of honor dress. Plus, there was the wedding gift to consider. She practically begged me, talking about how much she adored my kids and really wanted them as the ring bearers. She even started crying, saying she'd make sure a babysitter was arranged and that I didn't need to worry. She promised she would take care of it so that my husband and I could enjoy ourselves at the reception. I trusted her, not wanting to let her down. Her wedding had already been canceled 4 times over the past 2 years because of various issues, and I didn't want to add to her stress. I wanted to be there for her as a good friend. So, we packed up our things and headed out to the wedding. The kids were excited about their roles, and my husband and I were looking forward to a weekend of celebrating. Everything seemed fine until the last minute when I realized my friend hadn't arranged for a babysitter, despite reassuring me that everything would be handled. My husband ended up skipping the reception and heading back to the hotel with the kids after dinner because someone needed to watch them. Meanwhile, everyone was having a blast with their partners on the dance floor, and I was left alone because my husband had to stay with the kids. I tried to enjoy myself, but it just wasn't the same. I couldn't stop thinking about how my husband was missing out and how all our plans got disrupted because my friend forgot to follow through on her promise. It was tough because I wanted to celebrate my friend's big day, but being alone made the night feel so different from what I had imagined. I felt torn between being a supportive friend and dealing with the frustration of my husband missing out. It put a damper on things, and I just wished my friend had remembered the babysitter like she said she would. After the wedding, my best friend tried to cheer me up, telling me not to worry and that it wasn't a big deal. But it was tough to just brush it off because I felt like the odd one out. Everyone else was dancing with their partners, and I was left third-wheeling because my husband had to leave and watch the kids. I didn't blame my friends. It wasn't their job to keep me company just because the bride had forgotten about the babysitter. Once we got back, the bridesmaids said they felt really bad for me and agreed that I had every right to be upset. They were also frustrated with how the bride had pressured all of us to spend so much, despite knowing our financial situations. They felt like she was partially guilt-tripping us because her wedding had been canceled before, making us feel responsible for ensuring everything went perfectly. A few days later, I met my best friend for coffee. She asked me to share my honest opinion and not sugarcoat anything, so I did. I told her I was upset that she promised to handle one thing for me but didn't follow through despite me and the other bridesmaids going above and beyond to make sure everything was just right for her. I explained that I hadn't wanted to complain during the wedding planning because I didn't want to add to her stress. But now that it was all over, I felt she was wrong for guilt-tripping us as if we were responsible for her previous cancellations. She started crying and said she felt like a worthless, terrible friend and that I must think she's a bad person. Later, the other bridesmaids found out, and now they think I'm in the wrong for sharing my feelings with her. They say I should have just sucked it up and let it go, even if I felt like I was right. Am I the idiot? For the comments, not the idiot. So, the bride wanted everything her way regardless of the cost or other burdens it might cause you and the other wedding party members, and didn't stop manipulating people after the wedding. I think that the only reason she asked for Opie's honest opinion was to be able to turn people against Opie and make them forget how she treated them all. Also, she didn't get defensive. She went right to, "Oh, I'm a bad person." She knew the answer before she asked. She was hoping you would lie to her to make her feel better. Sounds like an emotional manipulation tactic to me. She may not be so great of a person. Destination weddings already ask a huge burden on everyone involved. But as someone not in the US, this thing about bridesmaids paying for their hair and makeup continues to astound me. You gave so much for her special day, and she couldn't even keep a babysitter promise. Why are you friends with someone so manipulative and willing to use you? Story 4. I'm a 24-year-old woman, and my stepmom recently celebrated her 50th birthday. To give you a little background, my parents divorced when I was just 5 years old, and my dad got remarried when I was 8. So, I've known my stepmother for a long time. I like her well enough, and since she's the mother of my younger half-siblings, it's nice to have a good relationship with her. Growing up, I mostly lived with my mom, but I saw my dad a lot, which meant I also spent quite a bit of time with my stepmom. When my mom turned 50, I really wanted to make her birthday special. I saved up to book a weekend at a fancy hotel where we could have a girly getaway and just relax and enjoy some quality mother-daughter time together. We got to hang out, get pampered, and have the best weekend ever filled with spa treatments, delicious food, and heartfelt conversations. We made some amazing memories, and it was clear how much my mom appreciated it. So, when my stepmom's 50th birthday rolled around, I wanted to do something nice for her too. I know she gets cold easily, so I thought she'd love a handmade crochet blanket. I spent months working on it, carefully choosing her favorite colors, purple and gray, and making sure it was big enough to cover a queen-sized bed. I poured a lot of love and effort into creating a warm, cozy blanket that she could snuggle up with whenever she wanted. I was proud of the result and excited to see her reaction when I gave it to her at her birthday party. When I handed over the blanket, she seemed genuinely happy and said she liked it. But then she asked me if I had anything else planned for her birthday. I was a little taken aback and asked her what she meant. She mentioned that I had organized a whole weekend trip for my mom's 50th, and she wondered if the blanket was all I had planned for her. I could feel the mood shift, and the party suddenly felt a little awkward. I tried to explain that I'd spent months working on this blanket and that it wasn't just a simple gift. It took a lot of time and effort. I also reminded her that my mom was my mom, so of course, she got a different kind of gift for her birthday. My stepmom seemed upset and disappointed, and I felt a bit bad. But I wanted to be honest with her. I explained that while I do care for her and love her as my stepmother, my relationship with my mom is different. It's a special bond that I have with her, and that's why I wanted to do something extra for her birthday. After our conversation, the party atmosphere remained a bit tense, and I couldn't help but feel a little guilty, wondering if I should have done more for my stepmom. But at the same time, I felt like the blanket was a meaningful gift that showed I care, and I hoped she would understand the effort I put into it. Ultimately, I wanted her to know that she was appreciated, even if my way of showing it didn't quite match what I'd done for my mom. I still hope she'll come around and see the blanket for the loving gesture it was. I just wanted her to know that our relationship matters to me too, even if it's not exactly the same as what I have with my mom. After I gave my stepmom the handmade crochet blanket, my dad felt that I was being unfair and rude to her by not planning something bigger. He suggested I take her out to do more for her 50th birthday so that it would match what I had done for my mom. I like my stepmom well enough, but she didn't raise me. My dad wasn't around to do much of the raising either, since he only had me every other weekend and on some holidays during the summer and Christmas. I could see why she might feel hurt or upset about the difference in gifts, but my relationship with my mom is just different. When my dad insisted I should take her out to balance things out, I got upset. I told him no, that I couldn't afford another big celebration because of how much money I'd already spent on the wool to make the blanket. Plus, I felt like my gift was already thoughtful and special. I had put in months of hard work to create something that she could cherish, but my dad seemed to think I had done this on purpose to upset her and ruin her day. Frustrated and feeling misunderstood, I decided to leave the party not long after our conversation. My dad stayed angry with me, convinced that I had intentionally slighted my stepmom. But I honestly thought I had done something kind and meaningful for her birthday. I didn't expect that my handmade blanket would be seen as not enough. I wanted to show her that I cared, but it clearly wasn't received that way. Is it wrong that I planned different kinds of gifts for this? For the comments, you are not the idiot. The effort you put into crafting a beautiful and considerate gift over several months contrasts with her dissatisfaction over its cost and the comparative value of what your mom received. You are not at fault. Your stepmom's sense of entitlement is glaring, and your dad's support of her stance is disappointing. It may seem futile to address this, but considering your experience in crocheting, she should understand its time-consuming nature. The creation of a queen-sized crochet blanket, with all its time and care, should have evoked a sense of honor, not offense. Your dedication to this project over many months demonstrates significant thought and planning. You meticulously selected something to provide comfort and warmth, tailored to her preferences, investing numerous hours in its creation. If she fails to recognize this, it raises questions about the depth of your relationship. I empathize with you deeply. A gift of this caliber is a genuine labor of love, deserving of recognition and gratitude.